What's going on, everybody? And I hope you're enjoying your Friday morning so far. TGIF, thank God it's Friday. This is NYG Jeffy T85 here, and I'm going to recap the New York Mets yesterday, who are trying to see, hopefully, if they can end this 4-game losing streak that they have been on for the past couple of games, losing the last 2 games to San Francisco Giants, as well as dropping the first 2 games to the Washington Nationals, where they scored a total of 1 run in that series so far. While the pitching still continues to be an absolute disaster, as Joey Luccehsi, he gave up 3 earned runs in 5 1/3 inning, giving up 5 hits, as well as he struck out 3 and gave up a home run to the Washington Nationals in this game, giving it up to the center fielder Cole on a play. But the positive for the Mets, while the pitching was horrendous, and that's including the bullpen, which also spit it up. Tommy Hunter gave up 2 earned runs. Brooks Raley also gave up 2 earned runs. Excuse me. The Mets offense finally got it going, as the Mets were able to muster up 9 earned runs and 16 hits overall, including a home run. They had 3 walks, and they only struck out 5 times last night, which is the biggest positive for the New York Mets overall. And it was an absolute entire lineup that got the job done. Everybody in the starting lineup got at least 1 hit in the game. And obviously the biggest guy that really made an impact last night, which should put a smile on everybody's face, was Brett Baty. Brett Baty had himself a hell of a game yesterday, where he had 3 hits in all 3 of his at-bats, including his first home run off the season for the New York Mets, off of Trevor Williams in the game. And the Mets end up winning this game, and they finish off that 4-game losing streak, and they win by the final score of 9-8 to salvage the last game of this 3-game series. So even though they've dropped 2 of 3 here, the Mets were at least able to get the offense going, which is a positive in this game. The Mets also got a double from Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor. Lindor ended up hitting 2 doubles last night. Lindor had 3 RBIs on the game last night, including a double down the right field, which scored Brandon Nimmo in the 6th inning. He also hit a double down the right field line, which scored Alvarez and Nimmo back in the 4th inning. Brett Baty hit that home run in the bottom of the 4th inning. Mark Canha also hit a sacrifice fly, which scored Jeff McNeil in the bottom of the 2nd. You had Pete Alonso single to left, which scored Francisco Lindor in the bottom of the 6th. And Daniel Vogelbach also singled to center field, which scored Alonso. You had Pete Alonso double to deep right in the 8th inning, bottom of the 8th, which scored Starling Marte. And then you had Jeff McNeil, who tripled down to right field and scored Pete Alonso. That's the biggest positive in this entire thing for the New York Mets, is that they had hits from everybody in this lineup, and some guys had multiple hits. Quite a few guys had multiple hits last night. Brandon Nimmo had multiple hits last night for the New York Mets. And he scored 2 runs. You had Francisco Lindor, who had 2 hits last night. Pete Alonso had 2 hits last night. Jeff McNeil had 2 hits last night. Daniel Vogelbach had 2 hits last night. Brett Baty had 3 hits last night. While the pitching staff is still somewhat to be desired for this New York Mets team, it's an absolute disaster still for this team. They can't get any consistent pitching right now out of this starting rotation right now at all. But at least the positive is at least the New York Mets, in terms of their pitching stat and their hitting, is starting to get going a little bit. And you got to see some of the younger players like Brett Baty and Francisco Alvarez start to make their mark in terms of the way they've been playing so far, which is a positive right now to see for this Mets team going into this big 4-game series that's going to be coming up against the Atlanta Braves. This is going to be a major thing for the Mets to be able to take care of. And David Robertson, one of the biggest things right now is David Robertson, his play right now. As Robertson, who is right now pitched in 11 1/3 innings, has given up 5 hits, only 1 earned run in that time frame. He struck out 14, only walked 3. He's been 5 for 5 so far in save opportunities as well, including last night. So that's a great thing to see, is just the great play overall that David Robertson has been giving for the New York Mets in terms of the closing position for the Mets overall. But either way, the Mets are going to be going now into a very, very big series against the Atlanta Braves. And the Braves are going to be pitching some of their top pitchers in this series. Strider is going to be pitching. You're going to be having Fried pitching in this staff. You're going to have Morton pitching. And the Mets starting pitching staff is going to be a little bit of a weakness right now. David Peterson is going to be back on the mound for the New York Mets tonight. And he has been awful so far this season. So far, he's been awful. So the Mets are going to have to hope that David Peterson gives them some type of good starting pitching performance tonight, because we cannot afford to have another poor performance from David Peterson tonight in terms of his overall ability, because the last thing the Mets need to do is to be able to get down in this game immediately, especially against that Braves team that is hitting all up and down that lineup. When you're talking about guys like, Olsen, Matt Olsen, you got Alex Riley, you got Austin Riley, you got obviously Ronald Acuna, you got Ozzie Albies, you got Travis d'Arnaud, you got a lot of players on the Braves lineup that can really do a lot of damage for them up and down that lineup. So the Mets have got to do a better job tonight in terms of their play, and they've got to make sure they get a good performance tonight from David Peterson, who is going to be opposing Max Fried tonight, one of the best left-handed pitchers. Fried is off to a terrific start. He's pretty much pitching a 6 ERA, while Peterson has been something to be desired. He's not been good at all in terms of his overall play, and this is going to be a major first test for the New York Mets in terms of their overall ability, as like I mentioned, right now, the Atlanta Braves are cooking, including Ozzie Albies, Sean Murphy, who's also part of the catching position for the Atlanta Braves. Right now, they have multiple guys that have 20-plus RBIs, including Ozzie Albies, who has 23, and Olsen, who has 22. And then you got a lot of other guys that have 16, 15, and 13. Acuna, Murphy, and Riley, all off to good starts for the New York Mets. So the Mets are going to have to get a better pitching performance overall from the likes of David Peterson, who needs to start stepping his game up. Pete Alonso's off to a terrific start right now for the New York Mets, as well as Francisco Lindor, but the Mets are going to have to hope that other guys start picking it up even more offensively, as right now, besides Brandon Nimmo, they're the only three guys that have really gotten 10-plus RBIs so far during the season. So we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen with the New York Mets and how this team is going to continue to perform going into this monster 4-game series against the Atlanta Braves. But good win last night by the Mets. Mets win this game yesterday by the final score of 9-8. Mets are now 15-11 on the season. And like I mentioned, they get ready for tonight's game against the Atlanta Braves tonight with Max Fried on the mound for the Braves and David Peterson for the Mets. Hit that like button if you haven't already, and give a sub to NYGJeffyT85. More news updates, chatter, and game recaps surrounding the New York Mets. Turn on the bell for notifications of the next video or short dropping on the channel surrounding the New York Mets. And you guys let me know in the comment section what you thought about last night's victory for the New York Mets and what you guys are feeling in terms of your state of the Mets heading into this big series against the Atlanta Braves, 4-game series, which could determine who could be off to the best start for the season so far. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your Friday. Take it easy, and let's go New York Mets. As always, all you got to do is you got to believe in those boys from Queens.